What's up, everybody? It's that Halfwit here. What the fuck is up, everybody? I hope you're having a wonderful day and looking forward to some One Piece content. It's part 3 of our Every Leader Speedrun series where we go over a deck list for every single leader in the game that I use to do my every single leader speedrun, getting a win with every leader in the game. 45 leaders, 45 decks, 45 wins. And now it's time for the blue decks today. Gonna go over some blue decks. And we'll show you what we like. Definitely blue is a color that has come up in the tier list a huge amount due to OPO4 and 5, honestly. So, I always love blue decks. Blue has been one of my favorite colors ever since the beginning. And I'm hoping that, it'll keep getting love in the formats to come. So, to start with here, we got to start with the ever-present, ever-good blue Doflamingo. This deck has been basically good and playable ever since set 1 with the same cards. Has not changed that much in set 2 or set 3, Set 3, you got 3,000 worlds, so you added those. Set 2, set 4, you got Red Rock and Kaido, so now you play those. But outside of that, the deck stays mostly the same. You're really relying on both A, hitting Perona or the stacker Doflamingo early, or just sometimes blind flipping something off the top. You can still get a lot of tempo with Mihawk. You have 3,000 worlds and Red Rocks to kill stuff. And it's just one of those decks where if you have a God draw, it feels unbeatable. If you have the God draw with Doflamingo where you're going first and you play a Perona on turn 1, and then on turn 2 you attack with Doflamingo and you put like a 4/6 Gecko Moria or a Kuma into play, and then you untap and you attack and you put another thing into play, it just feels so hard for your opponent to come back. They're just so far behind on the board. And, you're going to be at 5 life, and they're going to be at 2 or 3 life, constantly attacking your rested characters, trying to catch up. And if you can get ahead and stay ahead, this deck is very good. You definitely have to lean towards playing aggressive, and you have to make sure you remember what's on top of your deck and in what order you're going to draw your cards. But if if you spent money on the Doflamingo leader, I doubt that it's ever going to entirely go out of style. It's always going to be at least a tier 2 deck in my eyes because of how efficient it is tempo-wise. And having 10-drop Kaido and Red Rock really helps because in the format before, Doflamingo had some matchups that were just unwinnable because it's like if they play something that Mihawk can't kill, then you just can't kill it, period. And now you have cards like Red Rock and Kaido, which really help your removal suite. And Kaido especially being able to get rid of 2 things. It's like the ultimate tempo card and perfect for this kind of tempo-based deck. So, of course, you can find some replacements for the Jinbei if you have to. But they're starting to come down. At least they aren't $100 a pop anymore. But they're still really good against Law. They're really good against red decks in general, so if you can get them, if you really want to play this deck, I would try and get them. Yeah, it took 11 hours and 50 minutes to play through all 45 leaders. Yep. But anyway, next leader. Here we got a deck that it's been out for a while, but it's just now starting to really get popular. I guess they tried to support it, but it's still not quite as good as it could be. And that's Blurple Crocodile. This was the first deck that I ever built getting into the game, because there was just a box of OPO1 lying around at the card store that I attend. Just while I was hanging out there, doing Magic gaming and other stuff. And this leader popped out to me because it was just a common in the box. And I was like, bro, I love Crocodile. I love this kind of effect of casting events to draw cards. And this card kind of got me hooked onto the card game as a whole. But even then, I have to admit, unfortunately, it's just not a tier 1 deck. You have some matchups where you'll really struggle. But at the same time, it's a really fun deck that can play a really long game and is really excellent at just killing every single thing your opponent plays. Everything, you can kill it. You know, you have 4 Red Rocks, you have 4 Miss All Sundays, you have 3 3000 Worlds, you have Mihawk and Kaido, and then you have the Crocodile to gain yourself life. So you can get in a position really where, you know, you kill everything they play for the whole game, and then when you're at 1, you just play an H-Drop Crocodile and you go to 2, and then they attack you and you go to 1, and then you play another Crocodile and you go to 2, and rinse and repeat. You know, there's all types of stuff you can do. I have done things like played a Kaido to bounce my own Crocodile before, to play it again and get another life. Like, this deck is really fun. Oh, dude, my first deck ever with Crocodile, that deck looked awful. I literally just went through the box of commons and I took everything that said Baroque's work on it and I played it. And it was an awful deck, but it got me into the game and I loved it. It was fun, you know. When I just had nothing and I just bought commons and uncommons for $10, and then I bought a bunch of cards to try and make my Baroque's work decks better. My Baroque works deck better, and it didn't work out, so then I just ended up buying Kid and playing green. But it was really fun, and I feel like a lot of people have that experience of just like finding some cards around and then playing with those cards and really enjoying the game, and then, you know, then you want to improve your deck and you buy more cards and buy more cards, and then suddenly you have a giant treasury of cards and it's the only thing you want to do on the weekends, you know what I mean? But this is basically just, I call it Blue Blurple because we're basically just playing a blue deck, splashing for Crocodile, for Queen, and a few copies of Bagua and Jack Gatling just for extra value. You know, Bagua helps you get back some Dawn, and Jack Gatling is just a card that really helps you trigger your leader as well. Because it costs 0 and it discards a card, if you have 6 cards in your hand and you activate Jack Gatling, you still get to draw a card off of Crocodile. And this deck is definitely really good at being able to draw cards off Crocodile every turn. That's the nice thing about Crocodile is you can draw a card on your turn when you 3000 World or Red Rock their thing, and then you can also draw another card on their turn if you Jet Gatling or Bagua or Dragon Twister. But again, if you're playing this deck, you need to know that you're in for a long game. You need to play a long game for your leader ability to really be good. But if that's okay with you, if you like playing long games and you like Baroque Works cards and blockers, then this deck is really fun and I recommend it. Okay, and then a deck that I played for a little bit, but kind of also really got forgotten by the wayside, is Ivankov. A deck that was basically entirely OPO2. When I was a Crocodile main in OPO1, I was like, oh, let me try this OPO2 Impel Down cards. These cards seem not bad. And I built a full Impel Down deck, and it was okay, alright. You know, I won locals or 2, but I also quickly realized that it's very one-dimensional, and once you get to the point where you have 0 cards in hand and you're only drawing 2, it's very easy for your opponent to just be like, oh, okay, you have 2 cards in hand, well, attack for 9, I know you can't counter out of it. You have 1 card in hand, attack for 7, I know you physically can't counter out of it. But you definitely still have some draws that are just too fast for opponents to handle, you know, when you go Ivankov into 5-7, you know, just 2 7Ks off of Ivankov into Crocodile or Ivankov into Luffy, or even Ivankov into Inazuma, which then becomes a 7K blocker. You can get aggressive that way and win, and with the addition of Red Rocks and Kaidos, it really helps a lot. Also, I think Deathwink is pretty good when you know, draw 2 cards, end of your turn, cast something, and then also cast a Deathwink to draw 2 more cards. That can really help keep you alive, and sometimes you need to just have something that counters for more than 2 because, you know, you don't want your opponent to always know exactly how much they have to attack for to counter out if you're only at 1 or 2 cards in hand. Still, this deck is super cheap if you want to get into it. You know, the only things that cost any money in this deck are the Kaidos and the, you know, 3000 Worlds, the Red Rocks, maybe these blockers here, but all the Impel Down cards, super cheap. You can play this deck to get into the game super easily. Alright. Now we come to one of the most hated decks in the game. that isn't a red deck at least. And that's Nami. You know, this is the very traditional Nami just deck yourself version. Of course, I feel like most people have seen this. Just all events, Apis, Zeph, Kaya. You're just playing by yourself, basically spinning your wheels, try and get to 0 cards. Now, this deck, if you don't know how to play against it, is so crazy powerful. It's really, 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 really good. And, it's definitely another place where, like, Deathwing shines. Of course, Kaya is gross. I'm a huge fan of casting Sanji's Pilaf. I love me some Pilaf, both because I absolutely love this moment when it happened in the show, and I love the card, too. Just draw 2 is really awesome. And it's just, you know, with Nami, you just counter out early. You have a bunch of triggers that say draw a card. And then in the late game, you have access to Deathwing, draw 2, and Zeph attack for 1,000,000. And if they can't counter out, they just lose. Now, if you're looking for a little more fun version of Nami to play, that isn't going to make all your friends hate you, I mean, it still might, but you can try this more beatdown focused version of Nami, which I also think is quite fun, where you're playing 4 Usopp, which mills 7 if it hits, 4 Belmare, which mills 7 if it hits, 4 Zeph, which of course is the mill 7 as well, and then you got 4 Sogeking for draw 2, pitch 2, and then 4 Usopp Pirates, so that you can get your Usopps and your Sogekings back from the graveyard in the late game. This version of Nami, of course, actually needs to attack to win, which is, you know, not as good as not attacking, but it's certainly more fun, and it'll cause less tilting moments from your friends wanting to flip the table because you never attacked them once and still won. But yeah, you know, if you're a Nami stan, I'm glad that decks like this exist, because it just also means that people can never be dirtling around and too slow. Nami is always going to make sure you're at least attacking your opponent at some point, because if you don't, she's just going to win the game on her own. Alright, now we get to the other Titties deck. Or the other Titties leader, sorry. And that's Rebecca. I was seriously considering swapping to playing Rebecca for some treasure cups that I have playing up, because this deck is like, it's the closest tier 1 deck that came out in OPO4, I think. It's really close to actually being a tier 1 deck. It hangs really well in the fight against Zoro and Law. Obviously, you struggle a little bit against Katakuri, but you can do good against Law. You can do good against all the creature decks, basically. All the decks that play creatures and don't have 10-drop Big Mom, you can be pretty good against, just because you can kill all the stuff they play. You can Trinket, you can attack with it. You have Trueno Bastardos. You have Leos to kill their 1-drops, of course, or Lumbus combos with so many of your cards. And then in the late game, you just Monkey D. Luffy plus Coliseum to give the Luffy rush, plus King Kong Gun to just kill whatever you want, you know, by attacking into unrested characters, and then you can just take over the game by drawing 2 cards a turn with your leader. That's really the thing that makes this leader pretty broken, that you just get to draw 2 cards per turn while your opponent's only drawing 1. Hey, look, man, I'm not saying anything. I would not say that I'm not into Rebecca. I'm not that kind of dude. Rebecca's not my type. I have no interest in her. But, like, I don't know. Some kids grow titties earlier than others. What do you want me to do? She's got them. She's wearing them. They're out. Do you want me to not say anything about it? No, I know. I'm just messing right back, you know? But I definitely want it to be on the record that, like, no, I do not, like, I have no interest in putting anything into or near Rebecca. I agree. She's a kid. I'm not interested in kids, but it's like, what do you want me to do? If I saw some parent letting their kid rock around like this, I would also be like, yo, bro, like, come on. Get your kid some clothes, please. Like, I don't know. We're not at the beach. Maybe we are at the beach, but it doesn't look like she's at the beach. If this is not a swimsuit at the beach, you know, and I'm not a prude, all right, dude. I love me some hoe outfits. I love me the hoes. Me and the hoes, good friends, right? Like, don't ever let anybody think I don't love the hoes, but, you know, there's no need to turn the 16-year-olds into hoes. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. I want all my hoes to be legal, please. That's all I'm asking. Just all my hoes are legal. That's all I want. Okay. Anyway, before I get fucking raided by the FBI busting down my door, let's talk about the next blue deck. Which is the lovely Queen. Miss All Legal. Alright, so Queen is another one of the new, like, hard blue control decks where if you're playing Queen, you want the game to go long. And, like, Queen, Rebecca, and Nami are all kind of the decks where I feel like you win more games off of your opponent conceding due to demoralization than you win from straight off actually attacking your opponent to death. You know, Queen is also one of those decks where you just absolutely demoralize your opponent by killing all their stuff, setting up the top of your deck, and then just gaining infinite life that is going to have a trigger in it of some kind, right? You're either going to trigger a blocker, or you're going to trigger a Capone. You know, we're playing 11 trigger blockers, and 4 Capone, and 3,000 Worlds, and Red Rock, so there's just so many triggers, and when you're gaining a life every single turn, and your opponent's just like, okay, they're at 2. Now they're at 0. Okay, now they're at 2. Now they're at 1. Oh, well, now they're at 3. And now they're at 1. And then now they're at 2. And now they're at 0. And now they're back at 2. And it's just so it's so frustrating, and you always think you're about to win, but you're never really about to win, because they're going to keep gaining life. They're going to keep making sure their life is a trigger that they're gaining. And then they get to slowly chip you down with these big 8 and 9k bodies of Mihawk, Yamato, Katakuri. These cards are all excellent. You got your trigger blockers, your 2ks, and then just cards to stack your deck and gain extra value. This deck is also really close to being tier 1. I think it's just a little too slow in the face of like red decks and Law, where you probably have to be playing Pound. There is a good chance that the deck should just be playing Pound instead of the 4 or 5 Boa Hancock here. The lovely, let me just read it quick. Pound. That's just on KO, you place one of your opponent's 3 cost or lower characters into their life. So it just helps with board clear, and giving them more life helps your Yamatos be better too. And it's just extending the game out. If you're having trouble with Zoro or Law, I definitely recommend playing Pound over Boa Hancock. But if there's more decks that are like slow and controlling, like Blue Croc or Rebecca or Whitebeard, then I definitely think Boa Hancock is where it's at. Yeah. Alright. Second to last blue deck, here we got my version of Crocodile. Of course, everyone else is playing the Sentimaru version, and that version is good, and it's probably better than this version, if I'm honest. But I like playing Searchers, man. I think Searchers are good. I think Searchers are excellent, and getting to play Who's Who in blue just feels really powerful. You have more things to do early. You can return your Who's Who's to your hand a lot of the time in the late game, either with ulti returning it to your hand, or 10-drop Kaido returning it to your hand. And you still have the really good deck plays of Red Rock, Dragon Twister against Law and Red, 3,000 Worlds, Mihawk, that stuff. You just have some nicer mid-range threats as well, where you have King, 7-8 to draw a card. And we got 5-7 Roki as just a good threat against Whitebeard and other decks like that. So, if you're a fan of Searchers, if you feel like getting some OPO4 alternate arts and you don't have as many of the starter deck Crocodile cards as you might want, then this is still a nice, you know, relatively cheap version of Crocodile, because you could play something instead of these Mihawks if they're expensive. You know, still the same tempo deck. You're killing your opponent's stuff. You just have some nicer beater attackers like these 7K and 8K bodies rather than playing Sentomaru. And for Dragon Twister, I really like against Law and Red. Yeah, hoping we get this Mihawk art soon, if not already. And yeah, of course, the Sentomaru versions that have been winning tournaments are all excellent as well. This is just a little more synergy-driven rather than power-driven. And it's up to you which version you like more. Alright, and then last blue deck here is a OPO5 deck. Last blue deck here is OPO5 Sakazuki. And this is a deck also that's like, this is the hardest control deck that they've ever made, and maybe they ever will make outside of Nami. This deck, you know, I've said other decks kill everything, but this deck is the ultimate kill everything deck. Don't let your opponent have anything in play. And we filter our cards perfectly with the discard draw card. We always get a full graveyard. Zeph helps us fill our graveyard. The -1 cost means that, like, Mihawk hits 8 drops, Zeph hits 4s, Borsalino hits 5s, 3,000 Worlds hits 6s, Lucci hits a 3 cost and a 1 cost, and all of this goes even crazier if you have cards like Marineford sitting around. And then you have this nice little infinite value engine of Mancherry. Mancherry can buy you back Borsalinos or Tashigis. So you just get to buy back a free 2K every single turn and keep filling your graveyard with Sakazukis and other blockers. And then, you know, if you ever run out of cards, boom, 10-drop Kaido, draw 4 cards. This card draws a lot of cards, and it is no joke. Unless you're at 0 or 1 life, you can play this and almost guarantee that you're going to live a turn. Because how is your opponent going to kill you through 4 fresh cards in your grip? It seems so tough. You know, but this deck is really nice. It's just removal cards, 2Ks, and Marineford, basically, and some blockers. You know, a lot of synergy with your graveyard. Sabo fills your graveyard. Leader fills your graveyard. Just activate your discard a card, draw a card every turn if you can. Zeph fills your yard. And then Lucci, Rebecca, and Mancherry help you get more value out of your graveyard. So this is a serious, real Tier 1 contender once OPO5 actually comes out. And, you know, if you're a former Magic player and you like casting Doomblade or you like casting Counterspell, then I highly recommend this deck. This is the perfect deck for my Counterspell, Wrath of God, Doomblade enjoyers out there. Alright, and that, my friends, is all the blue decks we played, all the blue leaders. These are all the lists that we got at least one win with in our leader speedrun challenge. So in the next video, we're going to be going over all the purple leaders, and then we still have black and yellow left after that. But I hope some of these decks at least were interesting to you. I think a lot of the blue decks are more common, more people have seen them. Oh, actually, oh no, I forgot a list. Okay, we're going to have to do one more, and then I got to redo the outro. Okay. Alright. Last list on the docket today is this Blurple Kaido deck list that is also really fun. It's still a little, you know, lacking stuff on the low end. But man, having a Kaido deck have access to a Searcher, it really makes me feel like, okay, I know why they didn't put an Animal Kingdom Searcher into OP01, because I feel like if they had, it would have been broken. Man, being able to look at the top 5 and find a Oni Island is so crazy. You just see Onis so much more consistently because you basically have like 7 copies. Like, looking at the top 5 for an Oni, and you can do it more than once sometimes, it just churns towards them so quickly. And then you still have access to some really strong anti-aggro cards like Dragon Twister. You have 10-drop Blue Kaido. You have 9-drop Kaido, which I feel like is one of the best purple cards in the game outside of Queen. And you just, like, you have a really healthy 2K suite. Sasaki X Drake Sasaki. And then, you know, you have 4 Jet Gatling to pitch whatever counterless cards in the late game. Now, you know, this deck is still largely hampered by its 4 life leader, I feel like. But it's definitely true that, like, blue and purple Animal Kingdom has a lot of really, really powerful cards. And I'd be really, really scared if there was ever, like, a blue and purple 5 life leader, like Rebecca, or, you know, multicolor 5 life leader like Rebecca or Vivi or something like that. Because the cards are really powerful. It just needs a leader that is sort of as powerful as the cards. But I can certainly see why the Altar Kaido leader spiked in price a bunch recently. And, you know, if you haven't bought your purple starter decks yet, you really should. You're going to need them in OP05 and probably OP06. So buy your purple starter decks ASAP is all I can tell you. Alright, and that was all the blue decks that we played in our leader speedrun challenge. We did 45 leaders, 45 decks, finished in just under 12 hours. I hope 1 or 2 of the decks is at least interesting enough to you to give them a try. You know, I did this challenge to kind of incentivize people to try out some of the other, you know, maybe less well-known or less popular leaders. And, yeah, after this, we're going to have to get to all the purple decks, and then it's going to be the black and yellow decks after that. So I hope you guys look forward to those videos, of course. Give me a like if you can. Follow the Twitch stream where we stream non-stop all the time at twitch.tv/halfbreed, obviously. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much, everybody.